Hello, in this class I want to cover some ways that you can keep in mind and employ to help you master the spin of the knife, to control the spin of the knife. And in this class it really goes into the wrist and hand and how you hold it. So let's see. There's three ways you can hold the knife. Honestly, there's a lot of ways. You can hold it like this. You can throw the knife like this. See how that works for you, right? No, seriously. There's blade held, handle held, and then there's, which I don't use very much, but palm held. Which palm held is a way to really greatly extend the range, for me, of a blade held, because holding by the palm takes a lot of spin out of it. You can. Alright, so if you're throwing by the blade, here's some things to keep in mind. Alright, basically where you hold it makes a difference. If I want a lot of spin, more spin, hold it closer to the point. If I want less spin, choke up on it. More spin by the point. You can see I'm not actually touching the edge with my fingers. So more spin, closer to the point. Less spin, choke up towards the handle, and that will put less, because you can see like the wrist action comes into play when I'm holding it closer to the point. Whereas if I choke up, it's not quite as much, wrist action to put spin into it. So more spin, closer ranges for the blade held half turn. Hold it closer to the point. Less spin, choke up on it closer to the handle. Alright, for the handle held, really, that doesn't really apply. The handle held, you hold it by the handle. I've never really choked up or down with that. For the handle held, really, it's how you throw the knife that's going to put the spin on it, and I'll go into that. For the blade held, the variation, the palm held I was talking about, which is like that, and I'm not actually touching the knife edge, as you can see. Now the thing about the palm held is, I can throw this knife and I can really keep my wrist action out of it quite a bit. So instead of throwing the knife like that, and there's some wrist action in this, however much I give it, but with a palm held, if it's really, I'm trying to open up the range for a half turn flip throw by the blade, you can hold it pretty, you can keep your wrist pretty rigid and throw, So the palm held will open the range up quite a bit and reduce the spin. I don't really use this. When I first started out, I used this. But if you practice a lot, you don't need to hold it like that. You can pretty much control the spin quite a bit. Just because you know what you got to do. You'll learn it. You won't even have to think about it. But it's going to take a lot of practice. Just a couple things to bear in mind. Blade held, more spin, closer to the point, less spin, choke up by the handle. Handle held, really, it's how you release the knife, and also how rigid you keep your wrist. The more rigid I keep my wrist, the less spin. And how I release the knife too is I want it to release as clean as possible, so there's no hang-ups on it. That's why, like with this knife, it's a really good thrower, because it may not look like much, but there's nothing on the handle here that's going to catch up on my hand when I release it. So that the cleaner I release the knife, like the more straight it's going to sail. If I want to put a lot of spin on it, then I'm going to use the wrist action for that. So wrist action will increase the spin or keep your wrist rigid, and when you throw, release it clean so that it will spin less. So those are the things I can think of. You will get this with practice, but it's where you hold it on the blade. For the blade held, palm held, you might want to try that. I've rarely used this, but you may like it. And for the blade held, you're just going to have to learn how to control the wrist so that it's not getting spun, or you may want it to spin a lot. For me, I find that I throw with the blade held mostly because that's what I first learned. But when I throw with the handle held, actually, I get just as good. And sometimes I'll just throw by the handle the full turn. And you'll pick this up. So those are just some things I wanted to point out, you know, as you're learning to master the spin of the knife, to keep in your mind. So that's it for this class. Dismissed. I don't know why I do that. Sergeant Shank's knife throwing course. I've been in the Army ages. All right.